Hi everyone, I'm back today and I'm super excited to be joined by my wife. We are going to talk to you about couples matching.
Hi everyone, my name is Susie Jing. I had the fortune of couples matching with Steven here. We didn't really know many people who had gone through the process successfully at the time, so we're just hoping that some of these pearls will, resonate with you and give you a little bit of a leg up while you go through the process.
We put our heads together and we thought about what are the top 10 tips that we could give all of you who are about to embark on the residency process, specifically regarding couples match. Number one, don't be overwhelmed. I know it's easier said than done, but couples match is obviously undertaken by a ton of couples every single year going through the match process, and we are here to tell you that it is totally doable.
Just know that this process, or the whole idea of couples matching, is really for your benefit.
The other thing that a lot of people worry about is whether the couples match process will hurt them. But actually, because of the way that the algorithm is set up, couples match usually actually helps you as a couple as opposed to hurts you as a couple. It's a benefit to be couples matching because you'll actually have more advocacy from two different specialties and from different programs at a particular institution.
The next tip would be to have a very honest conversation with your partner. This is just really important because I think at the end of the day, we've unfortunately heard stories of people who have couples match, and unfortunately things just don't work out.
In other words, what we're trying to say is, as uncomfortable as it is, it might be important to actually have the talk in terms of what's going to happen with the relationship, where do each of you see the future being, not just emotionally, but also geographically speaking. That also means being very honest about what your priorities are. Is a priority a particular geographic location, or is a priority a particular institution?
Sometimes it may be that one partner will be a lot more ecstatic, the other partner may have to be okay with not getting their top choice.
Number three is to make sure that you make it super obvious that you're couples matching, and there's some very simple ways to do this. One of the easy ways to do this is to actually put your partner's ERAS ID into your personal statement. At the end of my personal statement, I actually had a sentence that said, "Please note, I am couples matching with Susie Jang. Her ERAS ID is XYZ." And Susie had a similar corresponding statement in her personal statement about my ERAS ID.
And it's important to put it in what specialty they're going into, so when the advocacy can happen on either end. So let's say Steven got an interview at a certain location or institution that I had not gotten any interviews at, or vice versa. It's really helpful for those programs to be able to talk amongst themselves, to be like, listen, this applicant looks amazing, and they're couples matching, so it's going to be really important for us to bring over their partner for them to even consider us as a potential option.
In addition to putting the number into the ERAS ID, the other thing is to actually not be shy about mentioning it on your interviews. When you're actually at the interview, sometimes it's helpful to say, "Just wanted to let you know my girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whatever, is also interviewing for their program at this institution." Or maybe you might even say, "Just wanted to let you know I love this program, but my partner hasn't gotten an interview yet. Is there anything that you could look into for me?" It is totally fine to do that. People do it all the time. Do not feel like you're crossing any lines by doing that, because ultimately programs know that for you as a resident to be happy, they want to make sure that you feel supported, and that includes supporting your personal life and your relationships.
So tip number 4, advocate for your partner. Both of us having sat on admissions committees for our respective residency programs, it's not uncommon that we have applicants who are, couples matching, bringing it up during the interview process, and also not being shy about shooting them an email, letting them know, listen, I love your program, would love to consider it as a top option. However, my partner hasn't heard back from their respective, residency program.
Do not worry about contacting programs to talk about it. So let's say that I got an interview somewhere, but Susie didn't get an interview at that same institution. I would email the program and say, "FYI, my partner hasn't gotten an interview in this particular program or in this particular city. Do you mind reaching out? Is there anything you can do to look into it for me?" And vice versa. It happens both ways. And importantly, those conversations don't have to actually stay within the institution. A lot of program leadership know each other across a particular geographic area, so it is okay to actually ask the program that has already invited you for an interview to potentially reach out to your partner's potential programs, even if it's not at the same university or institution. And this actually folds into tip number 5, which is check your ego at the door. It is okay for your partner to advocate for you. It is okay for you to advocate for your partner. Ultimately, your goal as a couple is to get to the same place together for the best possible outcome for your relationship. Trust me when I say, from a program leadership point of view, that is also what we want for our residents. We want our residents to be happy. We want our residents to have their support network in the city that they're working. And so for that reason, we also want our future residents to have their partners with them if at all possible. Everyone is really shooting for the same goal, and it is okay if your partner got an interview first. Maybe you need a little bit of extra advocacy to get your interview, because I promise it goes both ways. Wouldn't you say that?
Absolutely. And so there's a terminology for this called the trailing spouse, the trailing partner. It's okay, just knowing, as difficult as it can be, that you are doing this for the benefit for the relationship, and that it's going to be okay if you're not always the most sought after or the one on top.
As a great example, just look at us. Both of us have been the trailing spouse before. Both of us have been the person that needed the advocacy to get the interview. And yes, it was difficult at first to feel that way. At the end of the day, we knew that the goal was to get to the same place together.
Tip number 6 would be focus on areas that offer a lot of different options for both of you. What this means is if there are no other geographic limitations, focus on the cities that have multiple different academic centers or hospitals that work out for both of you.
Often this means the big cities and also certain geographic areas. So Susie and I matched in Boston because there's just so many academic centers in Boston, and obviously Boston's not the only city like that. If you are not geographically limited, this is a great time to really think about focusing your energy in areas where, statistically speaking, it's more likely that the two of you will match together in the same city. Number 7, be creative. So even though your favorite program might not be in the same city as your partner's favorite program, maybe it's possible that those two programs are geographically close to each other. You might have to be a little bit farther apart. So for example, we're in Boston, and we know of a lot of people who couples match where one person in the couple is in Boston and the other one is in Providence, Rhode Island. And the commute between the two is about an hour, and so often what they do is they just live halfway between both cities, and so both of their commutes is 30 minutes. While that might not seem like an ideal couples match at first, it's totally doable. Keep all your options open and to really be creative when you're coming up with possibilities of different matches for the two of you.
Also recognizing, depending on the different specialties that you're both going into, sometimes that commute may be a little bit longer for one spouse who doesn't have to be in the ORs at 5 in the morning.
What are you trying to say about dermatology?
Tip number 8, focusing on categorical programs where the intern year is combined with the actual residency program that you're trying to get into. Specifically for anesthesia, right when I was applying about 10 years ago, that's when really the majority of programs were really starting to go towards more categorical versus the traditional model of having a transition year somewhere and then matching into your anesthesia program. Having that all in one really cuts down on the number of, again, the different permutations and options.
For those of you who might not have that option to focus on the categorical programs, such as those of you who might be going into dermatology where really a prelim or a TY year is the standard, you can maybe think about focusing on one geographic location for your prelim years. So for example, if you're graduating from medical school in Boston, then maybe you should just apply to the prelim programs in Boston, because that cuts down drastically on the number of interviews that you would have to go on in order to make that match happen. Additionally, it's probably much more likely for you to match at a prelim program if you're already at that institution and can talk to the program directors. It can really help cut down on cost, on time, on travel in the future when people are traveling again for interviews. Obviously with COVID right now, that's not really as much of an issue, but just think about that as a way to save on all those other factors.
And your sanity. I decided to play it safe and applied at least 2 or 3 transitional year programs or internal medicine programs in each city that we were focusing in on, and they add up really quickly and it can get really painful.
I think at last count, Susie actually went on 33 interviews during the residency application process, which was insane. And so we definitely actually at the end of our interview cycle started dropping interviews because we just knew that 1, we had to keep our sanity, and 2, the likelihood of us ending up in a certain city where there were only 2 possible programs for us was statistically so much lower than ending up in a city where there were multiple programs where we could potentially couples match up. Okay, number 9. Keep notes for yourself. So yes, a lot of people already do this when you're interviewing. Maybe you did this when you were interviewing for medical school. You would jot down little notes when you went on your interviews and saw the institution. Now this year is going to be a little bit different because all residency interviews will probably be virtual, at least during the COVID era. But regardless, try to take some notes on how you felt about the program, what the strengths, what the weaknesses of the program might be, because ultimately, at the end of everything, when you and your partner come back together to create your prepared ranked list. It's really helpful to have those notes and to go back to what we talked about earlier, how you're prioritizing, where you're prioritizing, why you're prioritizing. So again, take notes. It's really helpful in the long run.
And I'll just highlight, this is a tip I give all of our undergrads who are interviewing for med schools too, but always jot down a little note about that gut feeling that you get. It may be a little harder doing all these interviews virtually, but I think hopefully you'll still get a sense of the culture of the place by just the different people that you get to interact with during the interview process. That gut feeling can really drive at the end of the day where these different programs will land on your rank list. Last but not least, tip number 10. Use your mentors. Use the resources that you have available to you. Current residents at your program, junior attendings, or even more senior attendings who've done it before, who've been in your shoes, listening to YouTube videos like this.
So when Susie and I went through the couples match, we actually were at 2 different medical schools. It was actually really helpful for us to tap into our respective mentors at each of our schools. I actually remember going to Susie's dean of students and having a conversation with the 3 of us. Correspondingly, at my institution, Susie also tagged along for a lot of these conversations. It is totally doable to make that happen coming from 2 different medical schools. And so certainly if you and your partner are coming from the same medical school, it's even easier because you have the same mentors, the same advisors, the same deans. So really tap into that. They're a wonderful resource.
I think we had a couple of big conference calls actually between the 2 different schools because they knew what we're going through was a little unique in the sense that we weren't couples matching from the same institution.
And at the end of the day, Susie and I both ended up in Boston, and we both got to train at some top institutions in the country. We were very fortunate that it worked out for us, and our hope is that it'll work out just as well for all of you. Hopefully this video gives you some reassurance about the couples match process. Thank you for joining us today.
If you found this video to be helpful, please feel free to like.
And if you find all this content to be helpful in your journey in the medical field, then certainly we encourage you to subscribe to this channel as well. Thanks again for joining. See you later.
Bye. Back when we were still engaged, I think, right?
You forgot.
I think we're engaged.
Wait.
I don't understand your notes for the first one, so you should take that one.
Oh, sorry. Doctor, or I guess it wasn't doctor. It's actually, and so for that, so tip number 5, which is check yo ego. Yeah, and I think
tip number 6 would be tip number
well, hold on. Okay.
So
No. Wait, what? I thought you had something to say.
before I said for having a greater number of
You can't do that. Just do it again.
do what again?
Say the sentence again.
Which sentence?
Oh my gosh.
I think it just, like up if you do your intern year at the same institution that you do your residency. I don't know. What sentence?